Welcome, Year 8s, to our next lesson on the First World War. Got a start activity for you to have a quick look at before we start off. Got a couple of questions here. Don't worry about them. Don't spend too much time answering the questions in too much depth. Just write very brief responses to these questions. So what is a social media influence? What do they do? Ignore that. What do they do? And what are advertisements and how effective are they today? So pause the video, give yourself 5 minutes to reflect on these questions and answer them, please. Thank you. So today's lesson is going to be all about propaganda. Okay, we're going to be looking at what propaganda is and how it was used in the First World War. Got a couple of nice little examples here. Today's lesson is very much going to be about using the sources. Okay, it's going to be about exploring the sources, using the sources, looking at the nature of sources and their usefulness, where they come from and their point and their purpose. Okay. So today's lesson objectives then is to know what propaganda is, to understand how propaganda was used in the First World War. And of course, we've got some keywords here, ladies and gents. So obviously propaganda. So if you don't know what propaganda is, you need to look it up, go away, spend a couple of minutes Googling these and get the definitions written down, the names, the words and the definitions. So propaganda, atrocity, patriotism, nationalism, and depict. So pause here, go away, come back when you are ready. So what does propaganda mean? Well, propaganda is information that is spread for the purpose of promoting a cause or a belief. Okay, short word, it is basically a piece of media which tries to convince you into believing or doing something. Okay, all right. So you think back to the starter task. I asked you about social media influencers and advertisements. So social media influencers today, okay, these people they basically try and get people to either follow them, pay them, or to buy a product. Very much same with advertisements, TV adverts on YouTube or on the internet. Okay, so media trying to convince you to either spend money or believe something. And propaganda was pretty much the same thing. So in World War I, the primary source of propaganda were posters. Okay, propaganda posters were the most popular at the time, and they wanted, or they were there to get people to join the army. Okay, recruit women, encourage people to save food, and keep morale high. And maybe even people to buy government bonds. Right, more about that later. So essentially, propaganda, 4 main tasks in the First World War. Be careful when researching this, because if you just type in propaganda, you're going to come up with a whole load of stuff. Yeah, a whole gamut of gear. So remember, just to focus any kind of research you do on World War I propaganda. So make sure you're specific in your searches. So why were they needed? Why did they use them? Okay, so to start off with, at the beginning of the war, the British Army was composed of something called the BEF, or the British Expeditionary Force. BEF was a small, very well trained, very experienced group of veteran soldiers that had been serving for some time and had fought in lots of wars, primarily supporting the British Empire. Okay. And so this British Expeditionary Force wasn't really a large army, wasn't really geared or suited towards fighting the massive 1 million soldiers that the German army had. So the British armies, once losses were starting to, once they started to experience losses on the fronts, once soldiers started to die, okay, and obviously because the BEF was small and they started to experience casualties, they needed people to join up. They needed recruits, okay, so they desperately needed recruits to join up and fight. Why posters? Well, at that time, radio was a very new medium. Radio did exist, okay, but it was a luxury item, and only really the richest people, okay, would have had radios, okay. Television had not been invented, and cinema was quite new as well, but didn't have any sound and wasn't particularly big or popular. Okay, so although they had radio, it was only really the richest people would have had it, and they would have been used mainly for things like mainly for news, a little bit of music, okay, and what have you. So the easiest way for the government to communicate with people was through posters. They put up around the towns and the walls and the cities and stuff. They quite literally became, okay, the weapon on the wall. All right, posters became the weapon on the wall. So, question number one, how were men encouraged to join the army? So we've got a series of posters we're going to go through and talk through in the next couple of slides. Once we've been through those, I'd like you to pause the video and answer this question here, okay? So that's your first question you need to answer. Right, so let's have a look at slide number one. So we have here, okay, a man called Lord Kitchener. And this is a classic poster, yeah? And, it's so classic that actually people have ripped it off. They've used it, they've imitated it, and it is been used. This style of this man with a finger pointing at you has been used lots of times. Your country needs you, yeah? Eyes are looking directly at you, all right? We've got a finger pointing at you, okay, and a very short piece of text. There's still a place in line for you, okay? So, will you fill it? So we've got all these lined up soldiers, but there's a spot here, there's a space for a fit man, okay? So not as in like a man who's particularly attractive, but fitting as in healthy and willing and able to be able to serve in the army. Okay, reserved. So think about what this poster is actually saying. It's saying that there is a spot saved specifically for you in the army, yeah? Will you join it? Will you fit it, yeah? The army, it's not just, they don't just want you, but there's already a space for you there, yeah? Okay, come and fill it and what have you. And look, these guys are clean and they're smart and they're uniform. The belts are almost all at the same height, okay, and what have you. Their boots all look nice and identical. They're all clean shaven apart from a few particularly rakish moustaches, and their hats are all looking smart. And that could be you. You could be that man, smart and proud and serving his country. Here we go. Follow me. Look at this chap. Yeah, handsome, dashing fellow here. Okay. Yeah, your country needs you. Yeah, follow him into battle. Follow him into excitement and adventure. And more importantly, yeah, the need of your country. Yeah, more importantly, your country needs you. Okay, this is all about patriotism. Okay, thinking back to one of the key words at the start of the lesson, patriotism. Okay, think about the meaning of that. I'll get my little pen up here. Yeah. Hey. Okay, patriotism. That's what this is all about, patriotism. Okay, getting people who loved their country and supported their country, and their country was important to them. Okay, join up because of that. Again, another absolute classic image here. Although certainly one you probably would have seen laying around history departments and books and stuff. Yeah. And recently, I've seen this on Facebook. I've seen this on social media. Daddy, what did you do in the pandemic of 2020? What did you do in the COVID pandemic? I've seen it say, yeah. And this man replies saying, I stayed at home, I wore my mask, etc., etc., you know. So this is often used, it's so popular, it's used for other purposes. But think about what it's saying here now. Let's look at this image. Think about what this boy's doing here. He's playing war, he's playing soldiers, he's playing army, yeah? And this poster's, first of all, this poster's saying that warfare in some respects is a game, and that, you know, it is fun and exciting, it's adventure. And look at this man, look at the guilt on that man's face, yeah? As his young girl looks at him. What did you do? Yeah? Did you serve? Did you defend your country? Did you defend freedom? Or did you just sit around doing stuff all? Yeah? Okay, did you take part? Here's another one that pretty much says the same, yeah? You know, in the Great War, the war to end all wars, the greatest adventure that would ever be, okay? Did you loll around lollygagging, playing tennis and cricket and rugby and, you know, enjoying the sun, wearing your dapper shoes, okay, and sitting around drinking fine alcoholic beverages and reading? Yeah. Did you, you know, was it all about leisure, leisurely pursuits, or were you this man? Did you go and serve? Did you hold your rifle proudly? Did you put your life on the line for your country with fixed bayonets, going over the front to give the Boche a jolly good seeing to? Okay, and here we've got another figure. So we had Lord Kitchener in previous. So this character here, this man here, if I can just get my pen up, okay, is John Bull. Okay, this man is John Bull, and he is kind of a little bit like, yeah, a human version of a British bulldog wearing an English flag. He's like a caricature. He is a the depiction of British society. He is the British man. He is a British man. He is a British soul. It's not about class. He is upper class. He's middle class. He's lower class. It's not about class. He's not rich. He's not poor. Okay, although certainly his rather smart outfit indicate that he's certainly not impoverished. Okay, he's wearing the flag proudly. He is John Bull. He's slightly portly because, like Britain, he is wealthy and well-fed, you know, and a successful British empire. And again, John Bull is asking you, yeah, were you absent during the war? Yeah, where were you while the war was being served? Be ready, join now, okay? Look, these sentences are short, sweet, and powerful, okay? When we talk about creating, this later on, we're going to talk about how you go about creating. Be ready, join now. We're going to talk about how you go about creating propaganda a little bit later, okay? Short, sweet, brief sentences. Yeah, if you've got loads of text laying around, okay, if this was full of text here that people had to stop and read, tons and tons of it, okay? Ain't nobody got time for that. All right, people are just going to walk on by. Think about what it's like when you're walking around the school, bombarded by tons and tons of text on tons and tons of posters everywhere you go. Do you stop and read it? No, you don't. You ain't got time for that. You're too busy. There's too much text to read. Okay, but if the text is short and big and quick and easy to learn, there's 4 words here, 4 words. Okay. If it's short, big, and easy to read, people are going to be able to read it. Think about the adverts you see the side of roads, yeah? The kind of adverts that actually you might drive past. Think about the ones that you actually read and the ones you don't read. Yeah, which ones do you read, which ones you don't? I guarantee you the ones you read are the ones with the least amount of text, and then the text is the biggest. Why aren't you in khaki? You'll want to be enlisted at least once or at once. Okay, why aren't you? Very accusing here. What excuses have you got? Yeah. Surely you will fight for your king. This is King George. Okay, G6. This is King George VI. Okay. All right. This is, and come on, boys, before it's too late, before they win the war without you, before you miss the war, you'll miss all the fun, you'll miss all the adventure, yeah? Fight for your king and your country. Come along, boys, before it's too late, before the war is done and dusted. Okay, so that was how propaganda was used to encourage men to join. What about women? Because they need women too, yeah? You'll find that once the men have all left the country, now all of a sudden they're going to need women to do stuff, yeah, because all the men have gone. So how were women used to encourage men to join the army? Women of Britain say go, yeah. Your wife, your daughter, okay, are all telling you to join, yeah. You're going to have to face them at the end of the day. You come home from work every day. Yeah, all your mates in the village have gone off to war and you're still hanging around at home. Look at the disappointment on your wife and your daughter's faces. Yeah, you've let them down. How about fear? Okay, how was fear used? Okay, so some posters essentially tried to frighten you into joining. Okay. They showed atrocities, okay? Hopefully, because that's one of your keywords, atrocities, okay? They showed the atrocities that the Germans were doing, okay? So unless the Germans were stopped, the atrocities would continue. Look at this mad brute. Look at this face. Look at what he's doing to this poor woman. This is Belgium. This is Belgium and France. This is liberty. These are the innocents of Europe. And look at this mad brute, this mad German with his German hat on, his German pointy hat. Yeah, and his great gape, and he's got a very German moustache going on here. Okay. And he's got a club of culture, German culture. Okay, so with his German culture club, he's beating to death the innocents of Europe, the innocent people of France and Belgium. Enlist, yeah, enlist to protect and to save the vulnerable people and the culture of Europe. We've got a German soldier with his pointy helmet and this grimacing face, bayoneting a child. Yeah, this poor baby being bayoneted to death by an evil German soldier. Look at these very German jackboots. So answer this question now. Thinking about the posters in the previous 2 slides, answer this question. How was fear used to encourage men to join up? Refer back to these posters in your answers. Pause here if you need to. pause the video and then come back to it. So how are women encouraged to work? So as I mentioned to you very briefly, with all the men being away, they now needed people in the factories and people on the farms. Yeah, they need people on the farms to grow the food. Okay, and they needed people in the factories to produce the weapons, the ammunition, and the uniforms. And there was a major food shortage. So they needed the food to grow for people of Britain and the soldiers in France. So they needed essentially factories and farms. Food and weapons, yeah. They needed stuff for the war machine and they need stuff to fill people's bellies, okay? And all the men were away work in France, okay? They were all away, so they needed people to work in these places instead. Women of Britain come into the factories, okay? I think actually, looking at this poster, I think this might be a World War II poster. These look like distinctly World War II bombers. So yeah, this poster, actually, whoever put this PowerPoint together didn't necessarily think this through. Those tanks are very modern as well. Ignore this one, rubbish. Here we go, this is more like it, the National Service, the Women's Land Army. Okay. So look at this, they need women to plough the horses, plough the fields. So also, posters encouraging everyone to do their bit. There's a very British phrase, everyone doing their bit, joining up, supporting the warfare, not wasting food, and investing in government bonds. Talk about that in a minute. So they need people, munition, men, and money. Yeah, munitions, so guns, bombs, ammunition. They need men to fight, and they need money to pay for it all. Okay. Waste not, want not. Save perishable goods by preserving them. Yeah. Pickle your stuff. Put it all in jars, make jams, make pickles. Don't waste food. Food, buy it with thought, cook it with care. Serve just enough so there's nothing left over, so food isn't being binned. Save what will keep. Eat what would spoil. Homegrown is the best, okay? Yeah, what you can grow at home. So war bonds, what were war bonds then? War bonds are really important. War bonds. Okay. So the government very quickly realized that they were fast running out of money to pay for all of this, okay? How are they going to pay? Yeah, for the guns, the tanks, the bombs, pay the men's wages. So what they said is right, okay, yeah, if you buy war bonds, you're giving the government money, right? And then what happens is after the war, yeah, the government will pay you cash in your war bonds and you'll get some interest with that. So it's kind of like a little bit like a saving scheme. Give the government your money, and when the war is won, they'll give it you back, okay, with some interest on top. Buy war bonds. So you're funding the war, okay, by buying bonds, and you'll get it back at the end with some interest. Yeah. So buy national war bonds, okay, for tanks, and also to save this poor dying man and his rather tragic droopy moustache. It could be so much more fabulous if you paid for those war bonds. Look at this poor nurse having to save this man and his tragic moustache, okay? With the money needed, you know, just £5 a month can buy a tank or save this man's tash. So, thinking back to World War I propaganda posters then. So why are they useful? What can historians use them for? Well, historians can understand, okay, the values and attitudes of the people at the time, and how people felt, how the ordinary everyday people felt, okay, during World War One. Yeah. They talk about things like, okay, patriotism, nationalism. So World War One posters can give us very much an insight into these things. Okay, they can tell us, they can give us an insight into what is patriotism, what is nationalism, and what it meant for people at the time. Okay. Right. So it's time for us to do something exciting. Okay. Before we do that, I want to just go over how you make propaganda. Okay. So first of all, okay, propaganda needs to be simple, short and simple. Okay. As I mentioned earlier, if it is packed with text, tiny text people read and can't read from a distance, they'll ignore it, right? Sentences should be short with a minimum amount of text. High contrast colors. Yeah, let's see if we can find a good example. Look at that, that's very high contrast, yeah? Blue on white. I think if we look at this one is a good example of high contrast, yeah? Black on yellow background, yeah? If you saw this at the side of the road, you couldn't miss it. Yeah, back to where we were. So, yeah. High contrast, shock, horror, okay? Make people stop and look and go, oh my God, that's horrific. Think about the gorilla, think about the bayoneting the baby, yeah? Remember, the picture itself is worth thousands of words, okay? So if somebody was gonna actually create some propaganda, minimum amount of text, minimum amount of words, big high contrast pictures. And that's exactly what you're going to do now, ladies and gents. So your task is to produce a World War One propaganda poster. Pick one of these four. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pick one. Do one. Either do it on recruitment of men, recruitment of women, okay, saving food, okay, or morale high and government bonds. It's up to you which ones you are going to do, but I want you to do it on one. Remember, keep it simple, okay? Minimum amount of text, nice, big, high contrast, colorful images. Got some resources for you here. So the British Library, okay, just going to very close this off. So here we've got British Library, okay, which you should have looked at last lesson. And there is lots and lots of lovely, lovely images about propaganda for patriotism, nationalism, atrocity propaganda, using it as a weapon, influencing opinions, commercial advertising, women in war, children, experiences propaganda, the legacy, and depicting the enemy, okay? So, yeah, use the British Library, okay, to help you. Okay, and there's lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of images on that. You could just Google World War One propaganda, okay? There are some video clips on YouTube as well, okay? By all means, these three at least, yeah, these three at least, watch these. They're very, very useful. And there is also a worksheet attached to this piece of work. Okay. Right. So over to you then, ladies and gents. Okay. Can't wait to see your propaganda images. You can email them to me once you are done. Thank you very much.